what's going on, you guys? Tom is going off into the next person's video.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I'm in the video next to it.
His little bald head
Although
popping
I feel
up.
like... Okay,
That'd be
all right.
funny.
Okay.
What?
It's the same. You're in the same spot.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot.
Okay.
It looks, it looks like that. I know you're confused, but see, that's what it looks like full. See? So I got plenty of room over here.
Okay, all right.
It's just you can't see it because I have the chat window open because I need to see this.
All right.
You know what I mean? You got me?
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, hey, it's a Haunting Mondays.
Yep.
Danny Rolling, you are, you reminded me. I was like the stepdad, the actor that plays the stepdad in this one. Oh, we're going to have lots of jokes about that guy because...
Dude, the dick.
Holy crap, what a fuck knuckle that guy was. But, I don't know.
Knuckle.
I don't know if that's what the real guy was like or not. But, like, the whole time I was watching, I was like, man, look at that Bob Vila-looking motherfucker. But now that you mention it, he actually does look more like that dude from Home Improvement. Actually, maybe that's what... It wasn't that dude, was it? I don't think it was.
I've never seen Home Improvement, I don't think.
I saw it, like, a long time ago, like, a couple times, but I know who he's talking about. And he even, like, wore the same stuff. Like, he wore the same kind of... Like, he always kind of had those flannel shirts on and shit like that. So he looks, like, a lot like... He basically looks almost exactly like that guy. I think he was slightly less chubby, but that's about it. But yeah, I think that guy was simultaneously the most entertaining and the most like hateable part of this episode because it's just like the whole time I was like,
he's doing his job. He's supposed to be a dick.
Yeah, I was like, wow, what a shithead that guy was. Like I said, I don't know what he was like in real life.
He's just the dick stepfather.
Yeah, the evil stepdad.
Yeah.
Now, I will note that I did find a little bit of outside material about this.
Okay.
Now, we've got some theories about this show.
Yeah.
I have to say that it's like, I hadn't really remembered much about this one. And I remembered there was like, witchcraft involved, obviously, because it was called Spellbound. But yeah, this one seemed a little bit...
It's out of character for
slightly.
cases.
I kind of feel like it was.
It doesn't fit well documented paranormal cases in terms of the patterns in which things happen. Things that I would consider to be kind of like a legit case. It doesn't really follow what parapsychology you would normally look for. It follows other patterns. I'll let Jenny get into that probably. But it's not what it appears to be, I don't think.
And it seemed like
it's a polite way of saying I think it's a hoax.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot happened in it. The thing about it, though, is that I found some stuff, like, on the, kind of not, outside the scope of the show, like, from the real people. And apparently, like, a few more things happened that they didn't show on the show. But I still kind of think, I don't know, like I said, I have some theories about this kind of shit.
For a case to be paranormal things have to happen. And supposedly, if a paranormal thing happens, I have seen paranormal stuff, so has Jenny. There has to be witnesses to it. It has to be pretty recurrent. In other words, it has to be something that happens several times or many times, and it's a real phenomenon that's happening. And I don't really see that in this, but, to me, the religion's involved with this.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. There's a certain phenomenon involved in churches where sometimes to get street cred as a preacher, you can claim to be a Satanist.
They used to be a Satanist.
Yeah. I used to be a Satanist. And then you tell a Satanist story.
That's a very, very common because they love that redemption arc thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then there's redemption arcs in the story, basically. And there's religious arcs inside the story. And... it's just, it's too, it's just kind of churchy,
Yeah, this one was a little bit churchy.
It was churchy. It's and I'm not to say that, if it involves a church, it's bunk. I'm not saying that. It's just that this fits a pattern. You know what I mean? Oh, I used to be an ex-con, but I changed my life, and now I'm a preacher. Oh, I used to be a Satanist. I changed it. Oh, my mom was a witch, and now I'm a preacher. Just that kind of stuff, It's unlikely,
I mean, it's always, you're always...
more likely that you kind of cook up a story.
Yeah, because the thing about it is that I guess there's like a lot of competition. I wouldn't know, but it's like I guess there's a lot of competition, like with being ministers and stuff, and they kind of want to get like attention. You want people to come to your church and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like it's kind of boring to just say, "Oh, I was raised religious and I decided to become a minister." The end. Like that's a really boring story. You want to sex it up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I used to be a heroin addict. I used to be a heroin addicted Satanist hooker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Just anything.
just anything. So you can say that it's like, hey, I was like the worst of the worst and I was able to redeem us, even if it's probably not true or it's like wildly exaggerated, which I think it is in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and this tended not to work with our generation. It tended to work with people that were older than us. They kind of were, they were more kind of, they were more likely to be into the church thing and then to fall for stories, you know. It's very rare that you find a person, that I ever find a person that would believe a church story, you know. Churches nowadays around here, as far as I know, they're more like happy clappies, and they wouldn't even get into the fucking demonic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been to them, but
Yeah.
I'd probably like catch on fire if I walked into one
Yeah.
of those. But
For a while, it was pray the gay away. There was a lot of that.
They're still doing that.
Still
They're still doing it.
Yeah, or you know, whatever.
Zach says, I now want to write a really upsetting dark comedy about the hooker character Jenny just came up with, right? Danny Rowling also says, the look on the son's face when he saw the painting of Satan in his room was priceless. I mean, the whole... I want to get into that. Because, the thing about it is, like, that painting, it's like that technically wasn't really Satan. It was just kind of like the Wiccan, kind of like god and goddess figures, you know what I mean? I didn't say it wasn't really Satan.
Yeah. I like how, you know, Wiccanism now is instantly Satanism.
Yeah.
Which,
it's like we're judging the Wicca. Because when we were watching it, I was like, oh, this is another Blame the Goths episode, isn't it?
Yeah. And kind of...
There's a lot of those.
I never really considered Wicca to be a real folk religion anyway. It's not very old. I think it might have been recodified by groups of people.
Yeah, it draws on older things, but
it draws on older things, but it's not that old.
No,
and it tends to be kind of hippie type.
Yeah,
chicks and proto goth women that kind of were into Stevie Nicks or something. You know, it's kind of like that. You know, I didn't even know any goth girls that were into Wicca. Well, not any real goth girls that were into Wicca.
I knew one
rare.
or two, but it wasn't really that much of a thing.
They didn't take it seriously. Maybe they might draw from some motifs of that, but I don't think they believed it.
Yeah, I think it was just kind of more like a fun thing to do. I don't really think anybody really believed anything was going to come out of it. But it seemed like pretty harmless, you know what I mean? Just having little...
The goth girl I knew was basically an atheist.
Yeah.
They didn't believe in any kind of supernatural stuff.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I kind of feel like that's... I don't know. I did know a couple that were, like, serious about it. They ran a shop and everything, and they really did believe all that stuff. But they were actually, like, really, really nice. They weren't, like, weird or... They weren't hippies or nothing like that. They were kind of gothy, but, you know, probably, like, my age or a little bit older.
And they were girls. They were the same kind of girls that'd be into, like, dragons and wizards and...
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Go to the Renaissance Festival.
Yeah, that's kind of like what these two were like.
They're more like that. They weren't threatening or anything.
No, not at all. That's why I always kind of laugh at like a lot of these haunting episodes that ones that have the Wiccans on them, like and then they practice Wicca, and I was like, oh my god.
And there's people in black robes going, whoa, and they're trying to, like Tom LaVey's fucking satanic rites. With
maybe
like
to some people that's like very scary. I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like they probably, like you said, they probably just go to the Ren Fest and like fucking hanging out playing D&D and shit.
Yeah.
It's not really
selling velvet handbags.
Right, it's not really that scary, trust me. They're fine. They're
burning herbs and smudging shit.
They're not gonna hurt you.
Bring the sage. You know? And then they're
put some crystals on stuff.
Yeah. Fake Native American guys pretending to be Native Americans in a fucking drum circle, with the sage and shit.
Like I said, they're not hurting anybody.
Right? Yeah. What tribe are you in? Oh, I'm in the what you call it tribe. Oh yeah, what you call it? Yeah.
The what you call it tribe.
Yeah. I know that tribe. It's a big tribe. They're part of the Lakota people. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Fake Indians.
Just making stuff up.
They fake anything here in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach says, do you guys consider The Exorcist to be a religious movie?
Kinda.
It sort of is.
Yeah, it was actually responsible for a religious revival.
It was, yeah, because people were like, "Oh shit, it's real."
Yeah.
Zach also says, "Have y'all ever seen Summer of Sam?" Yes, I actually saw that in the theater when it came out, and I saw it like on cable. I actually remember it being pretty good. Yeah, it's basically Spike Lee trying to do a Scorsese movie about the son of Sam murders, and it is bizarre. Yeah, it was a lot weirder than I remembered. Like, I think when I saw it in the theater when it came out, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But when I saw it again, I was like, that was kind of a weird movie. But I liked it, though. I don't know. Oracle says, Tom and Jenny, there's a miniseries adaptation of Midwinter of the Spirit, which features the Reverend Marilee Watkins, a C of E exorcist, and you might like it. I think I've recommended the books to Jenny before. Yeah, that might actually be really interesting. Again? Midwinter of the Spirit.
What is that, on Netflix or something?
I don't know. I have to look it up. Okay. Let's see. Oracle also says, also, I'm perkier than usual today because I spoke to my little sister yesterday and I'm going to be an aunt in a couple months. Oh, that's cool. Like, congratulations. I mean, not, congratulations to you for being an aunt. I know you're not the one that's pregnant. Dana Rowling said, yeah, of course it's a religious film. It has to do with Catholics. I mean, that's the thing. I think it's kind of like the perfect religious movie because it's a religious movie in the sense that like the Catholics are the good guys and demons are real and they battle them and stuff like that. But it's like it's not preachy and it wouldn't turn off somebody that didn't believe any of that stuff because it's just like a horror movie.
It's like a horror movie. There's a lot of them. It's like the Prophecy was like that with Christopher Walken. I think there's 2 of those, maybe 3 of them. They were pretty fun.
Yeah,
about angels, fallen angels. Kind of like a vampire movie, but they were fallen angels doing weird shit.
Right.
There's a lot of them that were like that. Noah was great. Darren Aronofsky's Noah, fantastic. That was like something out of the Ridley Scott, or you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
like Prometheus.
That was a crazy ass movie.
Yeah, it was a creepy movie.
I told you might like his newer movie Mother as well. Yeah. That's a ride. That's also kind of like a biblical allegory, but it's weirder. I don't know if it's weirder. It is kind of weird. I really liked it, but a lot of people really didn't.
They had a lot of religious and Christian movies. The one where the damn dude was telling his kids that these people were possessed by demons. They were bringing them in and killing them.
Frailty.
Fucking fantastic horror movie.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is that I'm not really bothered by like a religious horror movie.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is that I mean, they're like, well, I don't really believe demon possession is real. But I was like, well, I don't believe vampires and Bigfoot and shit is real either. But it's like, I'll watch horror movies about that. I'm able to, like, it's called imagination. Like, I can suspend my disbelief. I just see it, like, the same way as that.
Yeah. Had that guy that was in Aliens.
Yeah.
The guy that played Hudson.
Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton was
I think he directed it, too.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's got these 2 little sons, and he's bringing people in. They were all tied up, and they're like begging for mercy. And can't you see it? That's a demon. You look, and the young son is telling the story. Can't see it, but his older brother's
like,
going.
I don't know, Dad.
Eventually, he's like, yeah, I don't know.
Serial killer.
Yeah, and eventually the older brother was like, yeah, no, I see it now. I see it. And they were killing people. They were women tied up, and dudes, and the mailman, and just. And it was fucking creepy. And it turned out they are demons.
Who knew that the mailman was a demon?
Yeah, they were demons.
Fucking mailman.
Weird shit. Or at least maybe you go crazy along with them and you start seeing them as demons.
See, there's a lot of different interpretations.
Different interpretations.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See, normally if a movie pulled that kind of stuff, because I have seen a couple of other movies that did pull that, where it was just kind of like, they're like, oh, like the crazy religious people are right. And normally that would piss me off, but for whatever reason, like, that movie didn't piss me off.
It was scary.
It was scary,
It did what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. You know.
It's creepy. Because you're like, oh, man, those kids are fucking going through hell. Their dad's a serial killer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome movie. I feel like it's still, people, like, I feel like they know about it now, but I feel like it's still a little bit underrated.
Yeah, low-budget movie. It was low budget.
Yeah.
But it was just well made.
It was, yeah. Holy Parish of Doom said, I thought there was something at the end of Frailty that tips the reality of the story in favor of the supernatural. Yeah, that's true. We haven't seen it in a while, but yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I'm pretty sure that, yeah. Yeah, it's been quite a while since I've watched it. Yeah, we reviewed it, but it's been a couple of years, I think. But yeah, so we said all that to say, you know, that we're gonna be talking about a haunting. Oh, before we do that, I don't know, is Louis here?
I didn't see him.
Okay, well, I guess we'll do this again like on the main show because Louis might be here for that. But we just got a package from Louis today.
From Louis. We'll announce it when he's here.
Huh?
Yeah, we'll announce it when Louis is here.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally do it now too,
Okay.
but you know, just because I want to show other people too. But I just want to say like we'll announce it when he's here as well, and he might be watching it later. I'm not really sure. So we just got a package from Louis like about like an hour ago, and he sent us Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, Blu-ray.
Nice, which I haven't seen in like forever.
Yeah.
Also, Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
So we'll probably be doing one of these.
That's 4K. Hopefully it has a Blu-ray also, because I can't play 4K.
Yeah, it has
both?
It says 4K Ultra plus Blu-ray plus
good,
digital
good.
code. Yeah,
Good,
yeah,
good.
you're fine. You're
Right.
fine.
I have
And
a 4K TV.
and he sent us a
$50 gift card. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Louis.
Yeah,
you're
it's quite
awesome.
a Christmas present.
Yeah.
We'll get right on those. We'll review them. I've seen them both, but I haven't seen them in a long time.
I've seen them both too. I've only seen Reservoir Dogs probably once or twice. I've seen Pulp Fiction a bunch of times. Like I think I saw that in the theater.
They're both good ones.
Yeah.
Out of his catalog, those are two of the best ones.
We should actually probably watch one tonight and talk about it on the matinee tomorrow. Good. So that would be good.
All right.
Zach said, last night I watched a really bad mummy ripoff type movie by the guy who did Battlefield Earth, and it stank just as bad. What was it called? Was it just called The Mummy? Or was it... Now, are we talking about, like, the original Mummy, like the Boris Karloff one, or are we talking about, like, the Tom Cruise one?
Look, man, I don't give a fuck what y'all say. I will defend Battlefield Earth. Okay?
Well, I know you will.
I will defend Battlefield Earth.
You're going to be out there alone defending it, though.
It's a fun experience to watch.
You and John Travolta and David Miscavige.
Yeah.
Standing there in a field all by yourself.
I think Battlefield Earth is a fun experience when you know where it came from, L. Ron Hubbard stuff, what the Church of Scientology is like, what they're trying to say, and just the stories behind that movie. That movie is fun to watch when you know what it is they're trying to say, because it's ludicrous, you know.
Yeah.
It's ludicrous.
Well, their whole shit is ludicrous
when you actually know what it is. I mean, you know, they're trying to say that a dude that looks a lot like David Miscavige is saving the human race from evil aliens that believe in all these crazy fucking corporate things, and they're just here to fucking abuse everybody and take their money. And you go, wait a minute, hold on. That's confession by projection.
Yeah, I was like, that's what you guys
Yeah, that's
doing?
what you guys did.
Are you really not that self-aware?
Yeah.
You trying to fake us out or what?
Yep. The alien cyclos is what they're called. Everything they're about is exactly what Scientology actually does. Not what it says, but what it does. Yeah. So
They can't be that clueless, can? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, they can.
I guess they can.
yeah.
I say that about people, but then I'm like, oh yeah, I guess people can be that clueless.
Well, a lot of organizations do that.
I know.
They are exactly the opposite of what they say they are, and the ones up top know. You know, they know that they're not like that. They are the opposite of what they say they are. Or they've just talked themselves into believing their own bullshit. But I think David Miscavige knows it's bullshit.
Tammy says, wow, can't wait for Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, like I said, probably let's do Reservoir Dogs first because I haven't seen that one in a longer time.
I remember that one being my favorite of Tarantino.
I think it might be mine
my
too,
favorite
but
one.
like I said, I haven't seen it in a long time, so I can't remember.
And Pulp Fiction was good.
Yeah.
Oh, that was like my second favorite. I'm not a huge Tarantino fan, but his crime stuff is in it. Those are two of his best. I think those are his best ones.
I mean, and I will say too that I really, really, really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's right. That one was really good.
We saw that in the theater.
And
that was really, really good.
And the one that he wrote but didn't direct, it was called True Romance.
Yeah, that was good too.
That was really
good.
good.
Oh shit, we haven't reviewed that one yet, have we?
Uh-uh.
We should probably do that one too.
Yeah, that was really his first movie.
Because I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, had Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette, and Gary Oldman.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a crime thriller, real good. And he wrote the screenplay, but he didn't direct it. It's really good though.
Right.
Really good. It's better than a lot of his movies that he directs. But
Zach's talking about that shitty mummy movie. He said, I think it was called Gods of the Sun or something. It was weird and bad. Now I kind of want to see it. Holy Parish of Doom says authoritarians are big on psychological projection, cognitive dissonance. Yeah, I've noticed.
Yep.
And then Brenner says, I think Pulp Fiction is my favorite, and then Hateful Eight. Yeah, Hateful Eight is good too. I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one. That was a good one.
I like that one as well.
Yeah. Sometimes Tarantino is on, and sometimes he's off. Just depends. We went to middle school together. Dominguez Elementary.
Well, that's elementary school.
Elementary school, yeah. Well, that's middle school.
No, it's not.
Isn't it?
No.
Okay. Middle school, that's right.
It's elementary school.
It's 6th to 8th, I think, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that middle school? That's right. Yeah, it was Dominguez Elementary in Carson, California. He was a little bit older than me, though. I remember him, but he was out of there about a year or 2 years maybe before I was. But I remember him. And my friends Jimmy and Mike used to see him all the time working at the video rental store up there on fucking, not on Alameda, but I forgot what street that was. I can picture it, but I don't remember the name of that street. Though they're near a supermarket on a corner. That's where he studied film. He studied film at the video rental place near our school. And behind that school was where Jesse James' chopper shop was. That was built in a damn industrial park that didn't exist when I lived there. It was just strawberry fields behind the railroad tracks. Was it West Coast Choppers, I think is what it was called. Yeah.
Brenner said he wrote Natural Born Killers as well. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, that was the one with Woody Harrelson and
yeah, that's right.
Juliette Lewis.
That's right. That's a good movie.
Yeah, that was also a really good movie. So maybe that's the secret. Like, he should write things and not direct them. Although I like some of the ones that he directed.
Some of the stuff he directs is good, yeah.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was fucking great.
Yeah, I loved that movie.
I forgot I have it. I forgot that he did that one. Yeah, that one was great.
Yeah, we saw that in the theater. And then I think I bought it for you for Christmas.
Yeah, I think overall that's his best movie.
Yeah, I mean...
yeah, that's his best one.
That's an awesome movie.
I mean,
and it's great because it's like a hangout movie, but it's also like really, I don't know, it's just like really, really awesome.
Anybody can watch that movie and enjoy it because you just kind of get into it. And it ends fucking crazy. It ends the way you want it to end instead of the way it really ended in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of his movies are like that.
Yeah,
they're like wish fulfillment. You know what I mean? Wish fulfillment. Yeah. But that's okay. That's what movies are for. You know what I mean? It's like it's kind of boring. If you want to show like what really happened, just make a documentary. You know what I mean? Danny Rowling said, wasn't Natural Born Killers loosely based on spree killer Charles Starkweather? Yeah, it was loosely based on that. We did a show about Charles Starkweather, did we not?
I don't think so. I don't think we did Starkweather.
I thought we did, but I have to go check.
Yeah.
We've done like so many shows. You know, it's interesting. I was going to say, like, just, you know, before we get back into the actual topic, but I get the end of year YouTube thing that always shows you like the videos that were the most watched like all year long. Mm-hmm. And do you know one of the I can't remember what the first most popular one was, but you know what the second most popular one was?
What's that?
Was the Herb Baumeister, the Fox Hollow Farm show.
Ours?
Yeah.
Weird. Okay.
That was like the second most popular of our videos this year. That's what I was wondering. I was like, why that one? I can't remember. It's in my email, but it's like I can't write. It was another one that I was like, huh. It was like a weird one that I wouldn't have thought. It might have been a movie review now that I'm thinking about it.
Good.
Maybe not. I can't remember what it was, but I thought that was really, really weird that it wasn't like new ones. It was always like old ones that were like the most popular, but I don't know. That's like really strange. I was like, that's probably good. That's good info to have though. Because that's like your most popular one, so you can kind of do more stuff along those lines, I guess. All right, so Brenner says Quentin Tarantino has a podcast called the Video Archives Podcast, and he's been talking about giallos mostly. Really interesting stuff, hearing his opinions on 70s Italian films. I might actually have to go listen to that, because I'm really, really into giallo movies. You know, and I didn't know that he had a podcast where he was just talking about that. Like, that sounds pretty awesome, actually. All right, so are we ready to get into a haunting? Spellbound? All right, so this episode is from season 4, and it's episode 7, and it came out in 2007. So this is one of those ones that like spans a really long period of time, right? So it starts out in 1965 in Geneva, Ohio. Danny Rowling also pointed out that there was another episode called The Unleashed that was also about a Wiccan.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, oh, they shot it in the same 2 houses. And I was like, I knew those fucking houses in this show looked familiar. Because I said that to you last night. I was like, I know they put that house, the one that they live in at first. I was like, I know they put that in another episode, but I couldn't remember which one it was. Because I imagine they probably, just like they reused some of the same actors. The reused actors. That sounds gross. But I'm sure they use like some of the same houses as well. But so, yeah. So this is taking place in Geneva, Ohio. So we have a woman named Sandra Waldron, and that is her real name. And her son, Gene, which I guess that's just what they call him. Like, that's not his actual, like, I found out what his real name was. Like, Gene is his middle name, like, but I'll get into that, like, later on, because he actually, like, wrote some books later. So they've just moved into their new house, along with Sandra's husband and Gene's stepfather, whose name is Steven. I guess that's his real name. And like I said, he's this kind of douchey motherfucker who looks kind of like Bob Vila or Al from fucking Home Improvement, right? Complete with like the plaid fucking flannel shirts. And he works at like an engineering company. So Gene, who was on the show, like he said that Steven was pretty much the only dad he'd ever known because he'd been like his stepdad since he was like 2 or 3 years old. And I guess he didn't remember his dad like prior to that. And, you know, so we'll get more into Steven later because Steven. So anyway, so one day, like in this new house that they have moved to, Sandra notices there's like a stone marker. It's kind of like a grave, but it's like not really a grave, I guess, even though it's kind of like a commemorative. They call it a cornerstone, I guess, which I don't think that's really accurate because cornerstone would be like, hey, there was this building here. But it was kind of like marking where somebody had died, like the schoolmaster from a school that apparently used to be on the property. This is apparently where the schoolmaster died. Like, they don't know, and they never said, like, how the person died, but they just dropped dead in that very spot, and they're like, oh, quick, like, put a fucking cement slab there, like, to commemorate this occasion. I don't know, it's really weird. So they kind of put it there. The stone says the school was established in 1880, but I don't think it said, like, when the guy died, although, like I said, I found it, like, somewhere else later on, so we'll talk about that later. Now, like I said, they didn't say on the show, like, who this dead person was or when they died, but I did find out something about that, like, later. So, Steven comes home in his truck from work, and this is one of many times where I was just like, oh my god, somebody needs to, like, punch this fucker in the face. So, Sandra's like, oh, can you take Gene inside and, like, get him, like, you know, to wash his hands or clean him up for dinner or whatever, because I'm gonna go make dinner. And then Steven's like, I just got home from work and all I want to do is like go in and change my clothes and relax and I'm like, oh my god, here we go. So, you know what I mean? And she's basically saying, hey, I told you that, you know, parenting is a 24/7 job and, you know, you need to help out. And he's just like, fine. Okay. So I was just like, Jesus Christ. All right. So Sandra mentions at this point, because the real Sandra was on the show as well, and she said she always got the feeling that Steven never accepted Gene as his own son, even though he'd apparently been his stepdad since he was like 2 or 3 years old. So this has been a while, because I think the kid was like, he looked like what, about 8? He looked like about 8 or something like that on the show. And Sandra said that Steven always seemed kind of like resentful, like he didn't really want anything to do with the kid. Sandra also said that she personally had always been really interested in the occult ever since she was a little kid. So she mentions this stone that she found in the front yard. And Steven, actually being normal for a second, says, oh yeah, our neighbor Denise said something about, you know, there used to be a school on the property. So Sandra gets really excited and she's like, oh, does Denise know how this guy died? But then Steven snaps back into douche mode and very, that's it. So he really only has that mode. Like
douche mode, that's all he had, yeah.
Douche mode, pretty much. It's just like douche mode and slightly less douche mode. It's kind of like just stuck over there. So he very condescendingly tells Sandra, don't start any of that hocus pocus garbage. Again, that's what he said. You've been spending too much time reading those weird books of yours. And I was like, okay. And maybe you should spend more time taking care of the house. Yeah. Instead of
cleaning the house. I thought he said cleaning the house.
No, well, he said taking care of the house or like looking after the house or something like that.
Right.
And I was like...
Yeah. Yeah. Clean this house up. Don't stop reading them books.
And that's the thing. It's like the house didn't look... I mean, obviously this is a reenactment, so it's like, I don't know. Maybe the house was a shithole. I don't know. But it's like on the show, it didn't look like it was a shithole. And she was like, I keep house just fine, and I just made you dinner, so like go fuck yourself. That's not what she said, but that's probably what she was thinking. So she just leaves the table without finishing her food. He's like, hey, where are you going? She's like, yeah, well, I'm done with dinner. Not really hungry anymore. Oh, I was just joking. Yeah, okay. And I was like, please hit him. Okay. So Sandra gets even more interested in the occult after, like, she found that cornerstone thingy. And one night, again, she's, like, reading her little occult book. She just has, I mean, apparently she had a bunch, but she just had this one, because I guess it was, like, neat looking. And she's, like, in bed reading, and, of course, Stephen's whining about that. Oh, it's getting late. Why don't you put your book away and go to sleep, blah, blah, blah. He's always, like, bitching about something. And I was just kind of, Sandra, I was like, please give this dude something to bitch about. It's like, I was really getting sick of his constant fucking bitching. So, over the next month, it says, Sandra kind of forgets about the stone thing in the front yard. So one day, she's in the basement, it looked like the basement, doing laundry, and Gene is down there with her, like, playing with his little toy soldiers or whatever. And she said, and I guess Gene heard this too, but they said they heard, like, what sounded like heavy boots, like, walking across the floor upstairs, because they were in the basement, like I said. So they thought that it was douchebag Steven, like, home from work early. So they were just like, oh, let's go up and see what, you know, what fresh hell he's brought us home today. So they go up there, but nobody's up there. So they're like, okay, that's a little weird. And then Sandra's like looking outside, thinking maybe somebody's outside. And then, I don't know if she actually heard this or not because she didn't say it, but they had it on the reenactment where she heard kind of like, it sounded like a weird kind of like breathing or like a sighing kind of noise, like something like that. And she was like, what the fuck was that? And then Gene was like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean? So it was like that kind of situation. Now, she said that this alarmed her a little bit, but it didn't really scare her all that much. She said she was actually just sort of curious. And she figured that maybe, you know, by making such a big deal about finding that cornerstone, maybe she kind of like inadvertently like invited the ghost of the schoolmaster like inside the house. And maybe now he's like, you know, fooling around in there like ghosts do. So after that, that's apparently all that happened, like about that time, because then it said a few years go by and Gene is now 11. So I'm presuming that this is what, like 3-4 years later or something like that. So one day he's out in the yard and he's kicking around a soccer ball and two of his little friends are over. So Steven pulls up in his truck again and we're like, uh-oh, what's going to happen now? And the soccer ball like accidentally like hits the passenger side rear view mirror. And just kind of like bends it a little bit. And of course, Steven has a fucking meltdown about that, even though it was obviously just an accident. Now, the real Gene, at this point, he said, all my friends were terrified of Steven when I was growing up. You know, like as soon as he came home, everybody scattered, you know what I mean? Like, oh, bye, we're out, you know what I mean? So Steven basically says, tells Gene, well, you're going to have to mow the lawn every weekend until you earn enough to, like, afford to replace that mirror. It's like, you don't know what money is and blah, 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 and, like, all this other kind of shit. So Gene says, the real Gene, says Steven's always yelling. He's always angry. It's like, and never, ever said any single nice word to him. So at this point, like, Steven and Sandra's relationship, you know, is starting to suffer more because Steven just, again, seemed very ambivalent toward Gene. Like, he would say stuff like on the reenactment, I kind of laughed when he was like, your son doesn't understand like the concept of money. Oh, I mean our son. Like he said it like real fucking condescending like that. I'm like, oh my god, what a fucking asshole. I mean, that's a great actor. I don't, like I said, I don't know what the, because he really like made me want to like actually hit the actor because he was like so hateable. Yeah. So Gene and Sandra, they said one of their favorite things to do when Gene was a kid was they both were really, really into horror movies. So in the evenings, they would like turn off all the lights and they'd pop some popcorn and like put a scary movie on and they'd like watch it and it was like really fun. So they are doing that one night. And then, of course, Steven has to come in and ruin everything. Like, he just sneaks up and he's like, boo, and like laughs like a jackass. And, you know, just kind of ruins everyone's good time. So Sandra says to him, it's like, how about you go have fun someplace else? You know what I mean? Which I was like, yeah, go girl. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to go watch the game with the guys. And she's like, yeah, good riddance, Chode. So but she didn't say that, but I'm sure she was probably thinking it. So then, like the day after that, Sandra and Gene are at Denise's house. She's the neighbor, by the way, for a barbecue or something. So Gene has to run back to their house, like, to get something. And while he's in there, one of the dining room chairs, and Danny pointed out this is very much like Poltergeist, which it is. That's probably where they got the idea. So one of the dining room chairs starts, like, shaking around. Like, it was actually, like, a pretty good special effect, I thought. Like, it looked pretty cool. Like, I would shit my pants if I saw that in real life, you know what I mean?
I have seen that in real life.
Right,
Things
that's what
like
I mean.
that.
So, so it's kind of like, and it's also, I don't know if this really happened or not, but it was kind of making an evil laugh kind of sound.
Yeah,
like,
well, yeah.
oh. Like, it kind of sounded, it reminded me of, like, that, you know that movie Funhouse, the Tobe Hooper movie?
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of, like, that thing that was out in front of the Funhouse. Like, like, it kind of reminded me of that. So, the chair, I don't know, the chair is laughing, I don't know. So it's like moving like that, and it kind of like shot toward him because he was like sitting on the couch doing something. And it kind of came sliding down the hallway, and then it stopped, and he's just like frozen, like staring at it, like, what the fuck? And then it looked like the seat of it, which was kind of like vinyl, and it kind of like smushed down like somebody sat on it. At which point the kid was like, yep, I'm out, and like got up and ran the fuck out the house.
Yeah, I kind of called bullshit on the scene, at least the way it was shown.
Yeah.
'Cause I had something similar that happened to me. I was telling Jenny at the time, I was like, how the hell could he just stand there? At Mammoth, I was walking down the hallway, and Red was in front of me, and he stopped and looked into the bedroom through the doorway and froze like he was seeing something. And I kind of ran forward like 2 or 3 steps to look and see what it was he was looking at. And the rocking chair was sitting there in the corner of the room with 2 stacks of towels, white towels on it, sitting on it, and it was rocking back and forth, man. It's basically like somebody had it and was rocking it back and forth hard. And I saw like a blur on the top of the chair, and that blur just kind of vanished. It was weird. And I saw it, and it took me 2 seconds, maybe I saw the whole thing until I processed it. Everything that I described, I saw that maybe 2 or 3 seconds. And as soon as I realized what I was seeing, I ran past him. And turned around and looked, like, and he ran too. Yeah, he ran too. He was ran behind me, and then he stopped and turned around and looked back in there, and it had come to rest. So, man, just standing there and watch that, and then that thing coming towards you like that, yeah, you'd have jumped out of your skin. You know what I mean? You have survival instincts, you know.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it would be something else if, like, you were in this room and you saw it over there, and it was kind of going like that. Like, you might freeze up and be like, "What the fuck?" Like you weren't sure what you were looking at.
Yeah.
But if it started coming toward you, I kind of feel like you were just instinctually like probably just run away from it.
Yeah.
You would think, not just let it come right up to you.
I looked at that rocking chair fucking flying back and forth violently. And I only looked at it long enough to actually process and understand what it was I was seeing. As soon as I realized what I was seeing, I was like, nope. Ran, you know. It was fucking scary.
Don't like that.
That was one of the few things I actually caught in the act of moving. Everything else was just it had arrived or, you know, something moving out of the corner of your eye. But I was trying to catch it actually moving stuff. You know, Lois and Red saw it throw things, you know, but I always saw things kind of like arriving, or they were already there, you know. Turn around and there's something there that wasn't there just a second ago, you know. Something from another, and it came from another part of the house. You're like, how'd that get up here? That was from downstairs, you know. Little small objects usually.
Danny says the father was shitty to Gene because he wasn't his own blood, which is shitty as fuck. I agree. The mom makes a mean-looking lasagna. It looked so good. It really did, didn't it? Yeah. That was a good-looking lasagna.
Yeah. So the case, the first thing that starts off kind of sounds like poltergeist. RSPK, recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. But as the story goes on, it's not poltergeist-like. And it didn't follow a poltergeist arc of getting stronger and then doing certain things and then ebbing and flow and then lasting a couple of weeks and fading away. That's usually how it goes. And then, you know, it's always unresolved. No narrative behind it, usually. There's no narrative. If there is a narrative, it's a narrative that some psychic came in and made the narrative up. You know what I mean? It didn't come from the poltergeist itself. There is no narrative.
Danny then says his mud-stained mirror was going to cost Steven an arm and a leg when in reality a wet rag would have fixed it. Yeah, pretty much. It basically just kind of like bent it like that. You could have just like kind of I'm not like sure what, because that was like an old car, but you probably could have just bent it back and cleaned it. It wasn't broken or nothing. Yeah, he just wanted to whine about something. He was a big whiner.
Yeah, Tammy goes, that's right, fight or flight.
Yeah. Yeah, I admit I probably would have punched the chair if it like came flying. I mean, I'm like, you know what I mean? Here it comes, like fucking flying at you. But like I said, I don't know if that's I'm sure they probably exaggerate it, because I will say there's not a lot of poltergeist type phenomena going on in this one. So I kind of feel like the rare occasions that it does happen, I think they kind of maybe amped it up a little bit. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think my Aunt Lois was a good example of what Tammy, I'm addressing this to Tammy. Tammy, I think my Aunt Lois was a good example of what your average person does when they see something move and it's paranormal. I was in the living room and Red and Lois were in the bedroom looking at something because objects had been moving all fucking night, and I heard Lois scream and then laugh. And I ran in there, and I didn't know what had happened, and she was... The bedspread was on the fucking ground, wrapped around both Lois and Red's feet, and Red was fucking looking up at the top of above the sliding doors of the closet. There was like it would flatten off where you could put stuff above the closet, all right, because it had a vaulted ceiling and it didn't go all the way up. And I could see the corner of a pillow up there, and he was pointing at it, and he goes, the pillows are up there. And I was like, what? And then I heard Lois scream again and jump up and down and goes, oh my God, whoa, 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 whoa. And she's like dancing, and then it stopped. And we're like, what happened? And she goes, it grabbed me. And it took me a few minutes of asking them what had happened. They were looking at the bed. 3 or 4 pillows flew off the bed, went over their heads, went on top of the closet, and Lois screamed. And when she screamed, the bedspread flew off she said it came off the bed like a manta ray, just in a single piece, and went around and wrapped around their feet like a wind, but there wasn't a wind. And then she felt something come up out of the floor and snake around a leg and snake around her waist and go up her arm and vanish. She said it felt kind of like a cross between a cold snake, she couldn't see it, with a hand on it. She said it felt like a hand. It came up out of the floor and wrapped around her and then jumped off. And we couldn't see it. I was looking right at her. She just said she could feel it. And
pretty creepy.
So it's screaming and then laughing, because what are you gonna do? You know, it's surprising.
It's got to be like disbelief.
Yeah,
too.
you're like in
holy
disbelief,
shit, did that just happen?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Now I didn't see the pillows come off. Lois and Red said when the pillows came off the bed, they were spinning slightly and almost like they were in 0G, and they were moving fast. Red estimated they came off of there probably about 50 miles an hour. And then and there was nobody there. And when the bedspread came off, they kind of heard a whoosh sound, you know, like a wind coming, but they didn't feel anything. It was just the sound of the bedspread. And Lois said it like lifted up off the bed an inch, and like there was like a anti-gravity or a wind underneath it, and it just slid off. She said it looked like an octopus, like a living thing. Whatever had a hold of it had a hold of all of it, not an edge of it, and pulled on it. You know, it's weird. Of course, I didn't see that. That was Lois and Red saw it.
Danny says the Unleashed is actually a scarier episode, but still on the same level as this one. Yeah, well, maybe we'll do that one next, because I don't think we've done that one, actually. El Padrino just arrived. Hello, everyone. Says hello there. Hello. Welcome to the show. So, yeah. So, we were talking about, like, the chair, like, flying toward the kid, right?
Yeah.
And how he did run away, like, when the chair... Well, not when it came at him. Like, when the chair, like, looked like somebody was sitting in it. Like,
yeah.
when it went down like that.
Go down like
that was just, like, a step too far. He's like, Yep, I'm out. So, he runs away. Now, he said that he felt like something evil was in the house. Because, you know. Now, Sandra at this point is still talking to the kid because, you know, he says what happened. And she's like, well, I just think it's the ghost of that schoolmaster, you know, so don't, like, get too upset about it. So she's actually an aspiring writer. So she starts writing about, like, the stuff that Jean experienced, right? So after a few weeks, at least according to the show, it says Jean sort of forgets about the weird chair thing, which I kind of find that hard to believe. You know what I mean? Like, a fucking chair, like, went like that and, like, flew at me and laughed like Toby Hooper's Funhouse, I don't think I'd be forgetting about that anytime soon. But, you know. So, they're all supposed to be going on this boat trip, like a fishing trip one day. But, of course, Steven gets angry because he's always getting angry at something. Because Gene is just sitting in the boat, like, just kind of fucking around. He's not breaking anything or nothing. He's just kind of sitting there going, woo, like, pretending to steer the boat. So Steven is just like, get out of the boat. What are you doing in there? Blah, blah, blah. And he's, like, pissing and moaning. And he's like, yeah, I worked hard to buy this boat to make Sandra happy. I was like, yeah, I'm sure she really gives a shit about your boat, dude. that's why he, like, justified paying all that money for it. Blah, blah, blah. So finally, Gene is like, fuck this. I don't even want to go on the fishing trip anymore. And he's like, I'm just going to stay home. Now, Sandra is like, yeah, I think I'm going to stay home too, because obviously this is not going to be fun for anyone involved. But obviously Steven will not allow her to stay home because she's like, oh, well, my friends are going to be there and it'll look bad if you don't go with me. Like, what am I going to say to them? You know, I'm like, well, they probably already know you're a douche, and so you don't have to say anything. They probably figured it out. But yeah, Sandra's like, well, I don't want to leave the kid home by himself. And Steven is like, oh, he's plenty old enough to leave him by himself. Like, he's not a baby, blah, blah, blah. So they just leave him there. He's like, I'll just go to my friend's house. So that's what he does. Gene goes over to his friend's house for a little while. But then he comes back home after dark, and his parents aren't home yet. So he's sitting in the house by himself, reading a little comic book or whatever. And then he starts hearing creaking, like somebody walking around. And he sees a shadow go by, like, outside the window. Now, when he goes to look, like, one of the chairs, like, starts going ham again. It goes like that. And then, like, he sees a guy in the window, like, the little, like, strip of window, like, next to the door. So this dude, I think he had a suit on, but I don't know if he really did. But the guy, he described it, the real Gene. He said the dude was tall and thin, and he said his face was red and disfigured. So he's just, like, out there. He's looking all, like, fucking... He didn't really look like Freddy Krueger, but his face was, like, all gory, like his skin was peeled off or some shit like that. Because Zach said he saw this. He's like, I remember this episode. That head in the window freaked me out so bad as a kid. I didn't want to look outside at night. Yeah, this was actually one of the scarier apparitions, I guess. So he sees that, and he just screams and screams and screams. Now, moments later, like, the doorknob starts rattling, and then Steven and Sandra come home while Gene is still standing there screaming his head off. And Steven is, of course, like, oh, I guess you were right. Like, he is a baby, and he wasn't old enough to stay home or, like, alone because he's, like, sitting here screaming. And I was just kind of like, when is the truck going to hit this guy? It's like, sooner rather than later, please. It's like, oh, my God. So Gene tells his mom about all the stuff that he saw, like the apparition and stuff. And she finally shows him the cornerstone. Because it's been like a few years, I was under the impression that he already knew about that because I thought she brought it up like at breakfast one morning. And I thought the kid was sitting right there, like back in 1965, but maybe not. So she actually goes and shows it to him. And it's like, this is probably the dude that you're seeing. And then Sandra says, oh, I've had a bunch of encounters with this spirit and I've never felt threatened by him. And I'm like, they didn't show that on the show, though. And they did. This is the first time they mentioned it. Like, they didn't show her having any encounters with this spirit. Like, they didn't bring it up, like, before now. But I don't know. It's really weird. So Gene said he felt better, like, after his mom talked to him. She's like, she tells him, she pulls, like, a, like Scatman Crothers, like, talking to Danny in The Shining, where he's just like, oh, they're just like those scary movies we watch. It's like, they can't hurt you, yada, yada. So that night, Sandra stays up after Steven has gone to bed to read her occult book because she's got to sneak into it. And she wants to see if there's a way to remove the spirit from the house because she's like, well, I don't feel threatened by it particularly, but Gene is freaked out by it, so I'm going to see if I can get rid of it. So she's down there reading, and of course Steven comes down and he's like, where are you? Come on! Like, you have to, and she has to, like, hide the book and all this other kind of stuff. It's ridiculous. Yeah, don't take too long to come to bed, he says, and I'm just like, oh, I'm like, please, oh my God. So Gene apparently doesn't see the ghost anymore after that, apparently. But the show says new problems have developed. I was like, well, actually, it's the same problem. It's Steven. It was, like, the big problem. So but at this point, like, it's now become unbearable because this has been, like, several years. So Sandra and Steven are, like, fighting all the time. And to escape the house, Gene starts going to church. Here we go in the churchy direction. With his friend all the time, and he really likes it, so he just, like, keeps going. He really likes church, and he really likes being out of the house because he doesn't want to be around his parents that are fighting all the time. Sandra, meanwhile, starts to have this recurring dream where she's like driving in her car and she's passing a sign that says welcome to someplace in Texas, and sort of like seeing Steven like kind of going by like in her side windows, like the car windows, you know what I mean? It's not, she doesn't look like she's running him over, unfortunately, but it's like he's like kind of like in the side sort of thing. And I think there's like a flash of like somebody in a black robe or some shit like that. So said she had this dream like a bunch of times, like over several weeks. And she said it felt like really vivid, like way more vivid than her regular dreams. So finally, Sandra breaks down and tells Steven, look, I can't tolerate your ass anymore. And she divorces him. And then she ends up moving back to Texas City, like her hometown, because she still had family there. Now, on the drive down, she has a vision, like, back to the dreams she was having. Like, the dreams she was having were, like, foretelling the future. Because she said she actually hadn't left Geneva, Ohio in a really long time. So it was really weird. She had, like, this really weird, like, deja vu when she was driving down to Texas. Because the road looked exactly the same. And, like, the signs looked exactly the same. And, like, she had seen them already. You know what I mean? So Sandra's able to find this little house for them to live in. Now, in one of the rooms, under this rug, she finds a pentagram, of course. How many episodes have there been where they move into a house and they pull up a rug and be like, I mean, that can't be that common. Come on now.
It's common to put that in a story. Because
that's what I'm saying.
Because it's a meme. Mm-hmm. Oh, look, a hidden pentagram underneath the carpet.
Must be Satanists.
Yeah.
I have literally never seen it.
Because it's out of a movie. It's gotta be. It goes back to the Indian burial ground story.
Yeah.
Oh, it must be an Indian burial ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
couldn't be white folks.
White folks would never do stuff like this.
Yeah, white folks would never haunt this place.
Which is pretty. Now I want to see a horror movie called White Folks Would Never Haunt This Place. Somebody make that. Just put it up on Tubi. It'll be fine. But yeah, so she finds a pentagram under the rug. There's a lot of that going around on this show. And she's actually like not scared. She's like excited about it. She's like, ooh, witches lived here. Because like I said, she's real into the occult and everything. And so she figures, yeah, like there was witches. And she's like, oh, maybe it's meant to be. Like maybe, I was meant to like move here. You know what I mean? Like it's a sign or whatever. So over the ensuing few years, because I'm assuming this is going to be, we're talking like 6-7 years, like they're jumping ahead. So Sandra's having a hard time. I mean, she's a single mom, obviously. And she said, well, she was married to Steven for a while and she didn't work then. She was, she was a homemaker. So, she just kind of had to take whatever work came along, and she was kind of getting behind on her bills and everything like that. And she wants to be a writer. Like I said, she's been trying to sell some of her stories to a publisher, but hasn't really been able to get any interest or, anything in that regard. And her and Jean have kind of started to drift farther apart. I think they were making a bigger deal about this than it probably was, because it's like, she's a single mom. He's like a teenage boy. It's like once, when they're teenage boys, it's like they want to go hang out with their friends. They don't want to like, hang out with their mom. That'd be weird. Because so it's kind of like Sandra's like, oh, well, there's a zombie movie on tonight. And he's like, I'm not into that kind of stuff anymore, Mom. I got stuff to do with my friends, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And she was like getting bummed out about it. And I understand that moms do. But like I said, that's just a very normal thing that happens. I didn't think that was that weird at all. But I mean, it is kind of lame that he's like, oh, I don't like scary movies anymore. I was like, fuck you, dude. Scary movies are awesome. So yeah. Basically, she decides that she's going to get more into the occult, more into Wicca, because I guess she's lonely, you know what I mean? And she's kind of also hoping that it's going to change her life for the better. She said she also liked it because it was more like, men and women being equal, and she liked that kind of thing because it was God and goddess and all that. And like I said, she liked that they believed that you could, like, harness energies and, like, change things and, like, make positive changes in your life and shit like that. What are you doing? Oh, you're gonna turn the fan on?
Yeah, I'm gonna make Pookie mad.
You're gonna make Pookie mad?
Yeah.
I've started calling. She makes a little face when she gets upset with us, and it looks like a little mad face. So I started calling her Little Mad.
Little Mad, yeah.
Because she just like.
Yeah.
She makes a little face like that.
When the ceiling fan turns on, she looks at it and goes.
Her little eyes go like that. She's like, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Her little mad face.
Yeah.
It's not just when you turn the fan on. Whenever you do something that pisses her off, she makes that little face at you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, a little mad.
She's mad at a lot of things.
She does.
Yeah. It's funny when she gets mad.
We should do like that Billy the talking cat.
Yeah.
Commercial where she pushes the buttons.
Yeah.
And Billy's favorite button is the one that says mad.
Yeah. Cats are angry.
I guess so. Yeah. I feel like if we got one for Pookie, she would be pushing the mad one all the time too. Just mad. You know what I mean? She'll totally do it. But you can just tell by her face. So Sandra sets up an altar. She said she didn't really have anybody to like teach her how to do Wicca or anything like that. So she was just like basically reading books and figuring out how to do it. So the first ritual she does, she said, was one for kind of like prosperity. And she said it actually seemed to work. Like a few weeks after she did it, a magazine actually buys one of her stories and sends her like a big check. I don't know how much it was. So she's like very encouraged by that. So she's like, ooh, I'm just going to get even more into it because that fucking worked and I got some money. That's pretty awesome. Gene, though, who is about like 17 or 18 at this point, like he's in about to graduate high school. He really does not like this. He's scared of the supernatural stuff and he starts kind of like, drifting farther away from her. Gene said that his mom like talked about the occult like all the time. And he kind of started to feel like, well, we've just gone completely different ways. Like we've become different people or whatever. So, she's all like, oh, what are you going to do after graduation? You're going to find a job. And he's like, bye, Mom. I'm joining the Air Force. So basically like a couple days after he graduated from high school, he went away and joined the Air Force. And he said that their relationship during this time period was very, very strained. And he just thought it would be good to like get out and like make his own life or whatever. So because Sandra is now in the house alone, she gets like way more into Wicca at this point. So over the years, like while he's in the military, like Gene kind of like loses touch with his mom, right? So he's in there for 7 years, and then he goes back home, like to Texas City. Now, when he sees his mom, this part made me laugh. When he sees his mom, he's shocked because she's all gothed out, and he's a little bit judgy about it, gonna say. She had dyed her hair black, and it's like, and she had black clothes, like a black blouse on and black pants on, and her dyed black hair. I'm like, oh, scandalous.
And you look at this woman, and I'm going like, oh yeah, she'd make a fantastic goth.
She should have like, no. I can't. I mean, this was many years ago, but I'm just saying, I don't know what she looked like when she was young.
Supposed to be, but yeah, I don't know when this was supposed to be.
I mean, it's hard to tell because, like I said, she was much older.
Yeah.
Like on the show.
No, even old goth women, fucking no, they don't look like that.
Well, like I said, I have my theories.
They age goth. Jenny's 50. Okay. They look like this. They look like this in their 60s and 70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at Cassandra Peterson.
Yeah, that's true.
She looks to be Jenny's age.
Yeah, and she's significantly
older
74 than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks great actually.
No, she looks fucking sexy. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so this part made me laugh because he was like, oh, what's this all about? Yeah. Just your black clothes and your black hair. And like I said, even the actress didn't really look that weird, to be honest. She just looked like she was like from New York or something. Yeah. So he's also like real shitty about all her Wiccan stuff in the house, even though I'm like, yo, you haven't even lived here for 7 years. You go away for 7 years and then you come back to your house and your mom is nice enough to like let you stay there. And you're just going to come in and be like, oh, you redecorated, it looks like with all your, like, fucking pagan bullshit or whatever. And I was just like, oh, boy. So, here we go again. So he goes back into his old room. And she said, oh, it's the same as you left it, other than this painting over his bed. And he's just like, oh, well, this wasn't here before. And he's like, there's a painting, and it was of the devil. And I'm like, not exactly. It was just kind of like, it was like the horned god and like the goddess, kind of like a Wiccan thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't really devilish or offensive or anything. I don't know what the real painting looked like. Might have been of the devil. I don't know. But like the one on the show didn't look that offensive. It wasn't very well painted, but it wasn't like scary or anything. But he was like very offended by it, so he like took it down. So because, in case you couldn't figure it out, while Gene has been in the military, he's basically become like a super Christian. And you know what I mean? Although I'll get into that because he actually talks about that outside of, because he's written several books, I discovered. And he says like a slightly different thing about when he became a Christian. You know what I mean? Maybe he just became like more of a super Christian while he was in the military. I don't really know. So I don't know. So he's talking to his mom and he's like, "Hey, how's it going, Mom?" And she's like, "Oh my God, my life is like so much more awesome now that I do Wicca," which I'm sure she probably didn't say, but whatever. But Gene is like, "Oh, whatever," and like he thinks that she's like messing with things that she doesn't understand, right? Like I'm sure he understands them so much better. So that night, he kind of like peers at his mom. She's like in her room, like doing her rituals or whatever.
Peering in on his mom.
I know. I was like, weird, dude. What are you doing? And it's like,
he's peeping in.
Yeah. Although she should probably like close the door. I think. And all she's doing is just kind of like a protection spell. You know what I mean? Like, oh, please protect him from yada yada. It's like totally harmless. So he's just like peeking in there, like I said, like a creep, and just kind of like scoffs and like shakes his head, like, oh. That mom of mine, she doesn't like her and her supernatural whatever. So yeah, he's going to be like almost as big a douche as his stepdad was, gonna say. So later that same night, evidently, like he's sleeping in his room and this kind of like bright blue glow like starts at his window. Now he said at first he thought it was just like headlights, car headlights, but then he like it keeps going and he wakes up. And he apparently sees like a bunch of what it looked like on the show was like a bunch of dancing white lights. Like somebody was waving a disco ball around kind of like, oh, just off camera. That's what it kind of looked like to me. And they were also making a weird noise too. Like a kind of noise like that. And then he sees a figure in a black robe that looks like his mom. And like she looks all satanic and shit. And then she points at him and says, "Destroy him." Like that. And I was just like, okay. Do I think he really saw that? No. So the next morning, apparently he leaves the house after that and like dicks around all night somewhere. And then, because when he comes back in the house the next morning, like someone was like, "Oh my God, where were you?" I was like, "Worried sick." And he's like, "Oh, worried sick, were you?" "Yeah, I'll bet." Like he was the real douchey like that. And so he's like, "Was that you in my room last night?" And like tells her what happened. And she's like, "Well, obviously that absolutely was not me. Why the fuck would I be in your room like in a hood, like going destroy him? Like what the fuck? Why would I do that? I don't know." But so he's like, "Well, it looked like you. I was attacked, you know." So like I said, I don't think he really saw this. I don't really think he saw this. So Gene basically says that he's scared for her, and he thinks that she let something bad in. And she's like, "I would never do anything to hurt you or anything like that." And he's just like, "Whatever, fuck it. I gotta go out of here." And he leaves. Now he goes to the library and finds something in an occult book about the little dancing white lights that he saw in the room that says that they're sprites. And I was like, okay, yeah, little sprites in the room.
Yeah, I like squirt.
White squirts.
Yeah, what about 7-Up?
That's what I said. They're not 7-Ups. They're sprites.
Little 7-Ups.
Oh my God. So yeah, sprites. And these are a product of witchcraft, evidently, because the book said so. So Gene says that he thought that his mom's intentions were good, but that she had inadvertently let in something evil because basically she didn't know what she was doing, right? So he's like, well, he didn't want to go back to the house, but he thinks he has to because he figures that his mom is in trouble and like needs his help or whatever. So he goes back home, but his mom like isn't around at first. So he goes into his room and he sees that Sandra has hung his little gold crucifix that he left there on his Bible in the middle of a pentagram that it looks like she drew on the wall. Like, did she draw that on the wall? It looked like she drew it on there with like a fucking grease pencil or something. I was like, okay, or painted it. And then she hung the cross on it. I don't know what that was supposed to do. So he got like super offended by that. And he's like, and I thought my mom was casting spells on me. And he's like, yeah, I'm out of here. So he leaves the house.
Look at Pookie. Look at Pookie.
What's she doing? Hi.
Looking at the fan.
Yeah.
Is she looking at the fan? Oh,
no, she's looking at me now.
Every time I turn over, she's looking at the fan.
She does not like that fan.
Yeah, she does not like that fucking fan. She's right underneath it, looking straight up at it like that fucker's going to fall. She thinks it's going to fall, I think.
I think she does,
because it rocks.
Because it, like, wobbles.
It wobbles a little bit.
Yeah.
She's like, that's going to fall. But then why are you underneath it?
She's like, because I got to, like, monitor
going to catch it. She's going to get it. If it falls, I'll be the first to know.
Aw. She'd run like hell if that fell
Yeah,
down.
she would. That shit would come down spinning and hit me first. Pow! Like
yeah,
that. Hit her.
Right in your little bald head.
Yeah, bald head and shit. Put hair back on my head.
Would it?
spin it, it'd probably cut the top of my head off.
It probably would, yeah. I don't know though. It's just wood. I don't think it would. It would hurt, but I don't think it would like
knock me out.
I don't think it would cut the top of your head off though.
Yeah, it made me pretty.
You'd be prettier with the top of your head cut off?
Yeah, it's all scarred up and shit. Maybe I'd be able to put my fucking Snake Plissken eye patch on.
Yeah, there you go. You look like a supervillain. Like I mean, even more than you actually do. You are kind of starting to look like a supervillain. You do need some scars. Need some scars. Like one real good one. Like I said, you need like a Blofeld kind of.
Yeah, going down there,
like going down there like that with the eye patch. Yeah.
Look like that damn Klingon general out of that fucking fucking Star Trek movie. General Klang or whatever his name was. General Karg.
Clang Karg.
Yeah, all the damn Karg.
Spoog. I don't know. I don't know what his name was.
It's got K's and G's in it.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, where was I? All right. So he leaves the house. So he starts to believe that the ghost of the schoolmaster that he supposedly saw this years ago was actually an evil spirit that his mom accidentally conjured up. So at this point, he cuts all ties with his mom, thinking that she's too far gone and he just can't deal with her shit anymore. So Sandra is like really upset by this, obviously, because she's like, well, I would never do anything to hurt him. Now she does continue to practice Wicca though. Now one night she's doing a dedication to Isis, the goddess, not the group, you know. And shit goes sideways. So she starts seeing the little 7-Ups too, the little sprites or whatever, the little 7-Ups. And also starts hearing the creepy voices, which sound like they're saying like destroy, like that kind of thing. And I'm just like, all right.
Yeah, black metal lyrics.
Yeah, that's kind of what
Cookie
it sounds
Monster
like.
voice.
It's like, oh my god, is somebody playing Venom around here or some shit? But yeah, so it kind of sounded like that. And then these kind of like dark figures start like kind of reaching out of the walls. Like this black arm comes out the wall, and then like a face comes out the wall. And just all these weird kind of noises and shit. This was kind of like the biggest thing that happened, really. And it was brief. You know what I mean? Like, she starts seeing all the sprites going, like, get off me. And then, blah, like, all this stuff comes out the walls. And then, so Sandra freaks out and just destroys the altar. She tips it over and she breaks all the shit and everything, like her little Isis figures. And she's, like, hoping that would close the doorway that she opened.
Yes.
And, I mean, I guess it worked, but... And she's like, she thinks these were demons. Now, note that I'm noting that she didn't describe exactly what she saw, though. But she did give up Wicca after this. So her and Jean, like, reconciled after that. Jean became a minister, which we'll get into in a minute, who actually counsels people who have been victims of the supernatural. And Sandra gets published, although I couldn't find anything that she... Well, I did find some books under her name... Like Sandra Waldron, her name is, right? And I found a bunch of like religious books that were written by Bob and Sandra Waldron, but I don't know if that's the same person or not, because I saw like a bunch of people named that. But she never practices Wicca again. Now,
want some more ice?
Yeah. Now on the outside, okay. So Gene, like I said, Gene is actually his middle name, and he does not have the same last name as his mom. So it took me like a while to find him, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a stalker, I promise, but I was just trying to do like some research, and I'm like, why doesn't he have the same last name as his mom? But his name is actually Reverend Daryl Gene Motal, M-O-T-A-L. That's his actual name. So he doesn't have the same last name as his mom. Like, his name is Gene, but that's his middle name. Now, he wrote a book in 2011, and it was called The Schoolmaster, The Autobiography of a Demonologist. Okay. Now, here's the synopsis from Amazon. The book is not available, unfortunately. So if you want to read it, then you're shit out of luck, unless you can find it at a thrift store somewhere. But the synopsis says, Platt R. Spencer was a famous schoolmaster. I'm assuming that this is the schoolmaster that they found like the cornerstone in the house for.
Yeah.
Who lived during the 1800s in the small farm town of Geneva, Ohio. 100 years after Platt R. Spencer's death in 1864, okay, so he did die, in that year, a young boy moved onto Spencer's farmland and into a house that was haunted by an entity that may have been the spirit of Platt R. Spencer himself. This is the true story of how that young boy survived many frightening encounters with the entity and how he eventually grew up to become a demonologist and schoolmaster himself. This is the autobiography of Reverend Daryl Gene Motal, also known as the Paranormal Preacher. Oh. That's what he's known. That's how I found him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So he also wrote a book. This is really weird. So he also wrote a book called The Witch's Son, because that one, they said, like, at the end of the Haunting episode, like, it was in the end credits because you said about it. Mm-hmm. You said, oh, Witch's Son. So I looked for that on Amazon and I couldn't find it at first. But then when I found out what the dude's real name was and then kind of back cataloged and, like, look, then I found it. But I don't know why it didn't come up when I put in the title.
I mean, maybe it's not on Amazon.
No, it is.
It is? Okay.
I mean, it's, well, okay, the description and the cover is on there, but you can't buy it. Like, it's not available anymore.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that they either, like, self-published it,
right.
or, I mean, it was a long time ago. Like,
yeah.
I think they published that one in 2007.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the one that he wrote called The Witch's Son, that one was, like I said, acknowledged in the credits of A Haunting. And the Amazon synopsis of that one says, based on the true story of a young boy haunted by evil entities, dark spirits terrorize him for many years until he becomes a man. You're going to love this. Until he becomes a man and leaves home to take an assignment with the U.S. Air Force at, guess where? Area 51. Area 51. So he's going to do UFOs and ghosts. He's covering all the bases.
Maybe he was assigned over there. The thing is, maybe. But the thing is I think that's Lockheed Martin. I think that's all contractors. Maybe there's Air Force down there.
I mean, security, I don't know. It sounded a little bit too...
They might be running security.
Perfect.
Although you would think that they'd probably use private security too. I'd have to go see. Yeah.
It just sounded... Well, like when I read that, I actually kind of like laughed out loud. I'm not saying that he didn't work at Area 51. I'm just saying that was like... I was like, oh, of course.
Well, there's a lot of jobs up there.
I know. I'm just saying that I just thought that was like funny.
It's just...
Because it's like paranormal. I was like, oh yeah, quite a coincidence. That's what I said.
It's
possible. Not impossible.
It's possible.
But...
I'd have to look more into it, but it's possible.
And then he said, this is from the Amazon synopsis, soon after he takes this assignment, I'm assuming at Area 51, his mother asks him to join the family religion, which I'm assuming is Wicca.
Yeah.
He refuses. Then his life mysteriously begins to fall apart as his mother seeks to destroy him with all the fury of a woman scorned. So he wrote that about his mom, and she still, like, agreed to be on the show with his ass?
It might be sensationalism.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, it might be sensational.
But I was like, wow, that's kind of a shitty thing to say. It doesn't take long before his marriage and career are destroyed, and he finds himself back home with his mother. Mm-hmm. Through many battles, both natural and supernatural, the man overcomes the forces of hell that come against him, and he becomes the Reverend Daryl Motal, a.k.a. the Paranormal Preacher, a demonologist dedicated to helping victims of witchcraft and the paranormal.
Yeah, there's millions of them. There's millions of them.
I know. I hate when that happens. But that's like, so the Haunting episode is based on that book, apparently, because they have it, like, at the end of the credits.
Okay.
And I was just kind of, I just thought that was really interesting that, so they kind of softened the show a little bit, at least from the point of view of that thing where he's basically like, oh, my mom tried to, like, get me to be a Wiccan, and then when I wouldn't do it, like, she... low-key cursed me. I mean, that sounds like what they're implying.
What's hinted.
Yeah.
Like I said, it might just be sensationalism. Trying to get you to buy the book. Because that sounds like a good tale.
It does, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, it might be a good story. I wouldn't pay for it or anything, but it's like if I find it in a library, I might like skim through it.
It's a niche market.
It is.
It's something that you sell at a religious bookstore, at a Christian bookstore.
Yeah. I also found an article about him in the Star Beacon from right around the time the episode aired, for right around 2007. And so basically, I'm kind of like, it actually says where the house was in Geneva Township in Ohio.
Yeah.
It doesn't give the exact address, but it says it was on North Myers Road. So anybody in that area of Ohio, maybe you know where it is. And he's talking about his mother was dabbling in witchcraft and the occult. And there was something else. Now, he says, and this is an interview with him, he says, I became a Christian when I was 8 years old, which that's not exactly what they said in the show, but okay. My experiences went from mild hauntings in Geneva and progressed as faucets would turn on by themselves. They didn't show that in the show. By the time I was 12 years old, the experiences became more profound. Furniture would move across the room by itself, which, okay, they kind of showed that.
So more profound at 12. That's poltergeist.
Yeah, I saw a male apparition, which, they showed that in the show. Motal's dog, Nikki, they didn't have a dog in the show, saw the ghost and attacked it, and he said the ghost threw the dog across the room. So they didn't show that in the show either. Maybe they didn't have a dog available. Then he does say, like, yeah, his mom got involved in witchcraft. He says, I think my mother was losing her mind. She went from a sweet mother to a paranoid, angry person, and I didn't know her anymore. So then it says about him joining the Air Force and, like, being in, like, Area 51 or whatever. And him talking about the spirits becoming dangerous. And he founded this thing called the Soul and Spirit Ministry. So it says where he helps people disentangle themselves from witchcraft, cults, and dangerous religious situations. And also he's a demonologist. So he'll go around. If you have demons, like, you can call him up.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still alive, but he was only in his 40s when this show came out. 45, I think he was.
He's still alive, probably.
Yeah, I don't know about the mom, but yeah. So that's basically, like, I think that was all that it said, that it was, because then it said Motel will release his second book, The Paranormal Preacher, The Truth About Aliens at Area 51. So
Truth About Aliens at Area 51.
Yeah. So I forgot about that. Yeah. So that was the third book, because he's written 3. So I was like, oh my God, I got to see if that's available. Did he ever write that? It's on Amazon, but it's not, you can't, like, order it. Like, it just says this title is unavailable, but it has, like, all the stuff about it, like when it was published and the cover and all that.
Any reviews?
I think that I don't think there were any reviews of this. I think one of the other books had, like, 2 reviews, and I think one of them was 4-star and one was 5-star.
Maybe he did pass away. Maybe that's why it's not available.
I kind of feel like probably what usually happens in those situations is, because usually they're self-published, and they either self-publish them, like, in the old school way where you publish them and you buy a bunch of copies yourself.
Yeah.
And then, like, once you run out, like, you sell them out. Or it could be that he did POD, like what I do, like print on demand, and the company that he was using maybe went out of business.
Yeah, maybe.
It could have been that. Because I had that happen in one of my books. That's why I republished it. Like, because I had it published by, like, a small press, and they went under. So they didn't have the print one available anymore. So I had to do, like, another print version of mine because the rights had reverted to me at that point. So it could be that. I mean, it's been a while since these books came out. The Area 51 one came out at the end of 2007.
Okay.
The Paranormal Preacher, The Truth About Aliens in Area 51. So, like I said, I think that's why I kind of laughed when I said, oh, of course he worked, like, at Area 51, because it's like he had to cover all the bases, you know what I mean? You want, like, you want the Christian audience, you want the ghost people audience, the demon audience, and also the alien audience. So, you know, everybody.
It looks suspicious. I'd have to see the material myself. You know, I don't want to judge it just on the way. But just looking at it on the surface and how this is intertwined with church, there's going to be a bunch of damn ulterior motives, probably.
This had the distinct whiff of Billy Bean about it.
Yeah.
It was a Billy Beanie type of episode.
Which that's kind of like the Warrens.
Yeah, like Warren-y. Yeah. Warren-y, Billy Beanie kind of situation.
Yeah, and, you know, we weren't there. I don't know this material real well. I didn't read the books. I don't know what his claims are. It's just that situation alone, I'm already a little bit skeptical. I'm skeptical. You know.
Yeah,
and,
me too.
The story that elements of this story just seem like classic poltergeist, but it's not. He's in that one description, it says it got stronger when he got to be about 12. Is that what they said? That sounds like something that would happen in poltergeist.
Yeah, that was like from one of the book descriptions.
Yeah, turning faucets off and on, which wasn't in the
episode,
but it was in the books. Which that leads more towards something that poltergeist or RSPK would do. And then if you start claiming that it's a demon or thinking that it's a demon, they do demon-like things because it's just fulfilling what it is, your expectations. Really, you've suggested to it how to act. It's really just your subconscious fucking with psychokinesis, you know.
Yeah.
Subconscious mind's fucking powerful, and I don't know why nobody's really going to be able to explain it. Stuart Hameroff's trying to with all that quantum soul stuff and quantum consciousness, that reality and time, space, and matter aren't as real as you think they are. They're all kind of relative, and there's certain parts of you that are certain parts of your consciousness that's happening slightly out of phase with space-time. It's in another dimension, and over there reality isn't as real. So if you have an altered state of consciousness, sometimes you can alter matter, which that's mind over matter, which that's quite a claim. You know what I mean? But there seems to be some evidence in quantum theory for this. You know, hyperdimensions, dimensions outside our physical dimensions. That's what that's what they're talking about. Look into Stuart Hammeroff and Sir Roger Penrose. They got some new stuff on YouTube, quantum consciousness, and they get into this kind of stuff indirectly. They'll say, hey, consciousness is not computation. It's not happening inside the brain. There's some kind of a quantum field that's happening, which might, and then Hammeroff will say, which might explain some of the stories we hear that fall into the realm of paranormal. We're not saying that's real, but it might support that. That's as far as they go. Although I remember his old interviews, he's like, no, that paranormal stuff, if it exists, it's this. And he goes, I think it does exist, because he had people putting them under anesthesia, knowing things that they couldn't have known, and having out-of-body experiences. That's how he got into it. He's an anesthesiologist, which that's a mysterious thing. How does anesthesia stop consciousness? I've seen it happen. Jenny was coming out of surgery. I talked to her for a whole half hour, and she wasn't in there. Seemed like she was there, but she wasn't there. She didn't remember any of it. Because those drugs shut your consciousness off. Even she was just a robot during that time. She seemed totally normal, though.
Which is crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, the same thing. The first thing I remember, I don't know how long I had been awake. The first thing I remember was just...
being in a car?
No, I remember waking up in the chair, in the recovery room.
Yeah.
I remember waking up in the chair, and I remember seeing you, and I said, and I said, oh, I was kind of in a little bit of pain.
Yeah.
But, and then and I think the first thing I said was, how long have I been up, or how long have I been sitting in here?
Yeah, and you'd been there for about a half hour.
Yeah, and you said that I'd been awake and talking for a half hour, and I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
But the weird thing about that is that it doesn't even take anesthesia, because that was really the first time I'd ever gone under anesthesia, because I'd never had any kind of surgery or anything like that before. So it was kind of a weird experience. I remember nothing. I was on the table, and they were like, here, count backwards from it. I was 99. You know what I mean? And I didn't remember shit until I woke up, and this absolutely nothing. I know some people do wake up, and that's got to be horrifying, but I didn't remember anything. So, but I was going to say that sometimes when I was younger, I don't think I've done this in a while, but when I was younger, sometimes I would fall, I'd be at my grandma's house, and we'd be watching Johnny Carson or some shit like that, at late at night, and I would fall asleep on the couch, and my grandmother would wake me up to, kind of be like, hey, go on into bed or whatever, don't sleep on the couch all night. And she said I would say all kinds of shit. And she would tell me the next morning, oh, you said this and that and the other thing, and I did not remember any of that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even anesthesia. That was just me being half asleep.
Yeah.
And I seriously did not remember anything. All I remembered was I was watching David Letterman, and then all of a sudden I woke up the next morning, and she told me I said all kind of fucking crazy shit. And I was like, huh, that's really interesting.
Has to do with each one of your brain cells, your little neurons, has a bunch of little microtubules coming off of it. They're extremely microscopic. They're real small. And there's a bunch of photons going through there, and little light particles. And it's acting kind of like, that microtubule seems to be acting kind of like a metamaterial. And it seems to be acting like a quantum computer. Well, those little photons and all those subatomic particles inside those microtubules, they're in superposition with each other, and has to do with certain things called collapse of waveform, which is some of the smallest amounts of measurable time possible. They're trying to figure out how fast time moves and what is right now, because right now is constantly moving. How thick is the present? Think about that.
Yeah.
How thick is the present? It must be infinitesimally small, because it's constantly moving.
Yeah, it's not really a quantity you can grasp, because it's constantly
and
changing.
Because all this shit is moving, and it's traveling through time, and the present is infinitesimally small, and it's all moving in different speeds and different directions relative to each other. Things are kind of slightly in different times. Some things are in the future, and some things are in the past. although you're experiencing them as the present, but it's an illusion. So there's a bunch of weird shit, and there's stuff happening inside your brain. This quantum consciousness is, basically what they're talking about. It's happening outside your. They're talking about a soul, basically, is what they're talking about, and it's giving you the feeling of being. It's called qualia, the experience, and computers and robots can't do that. No binary-based digital computer will ever have the feeling of being. It's going to have to be a quantum computer, which is analog. It's not digital. And then there's going to be a bunch of problems. But Hammeroff postulates that AI will only be a simulation. It will not be a living thing. That it can't be. It's not biological and it's not analog.
I read a book about that topic like a few years ago, and they pretty much came to the same conclusion. Yeah. But I mean, never say never, but they had a pretty convincing argument.
They said it will convince you. AI will convince you that it's real. It's not. It's an illusion of a living being. It might be extremely intelligent, but it might be it might have the ability to adapt and change and solve all these problems. But that thing does not feel like it exists. It's not there. It's just like a person under the effects of anesthesia. They'll be able to do all this stuff, but they're not there. The way Jenny was.
See, now I'm really kind of curious about if somebody was like doing kind of a study where, because sometimes they do this like weird sleep studies or like about your nightmares, or they hook up shit to your brain and like do weird shit to you, like to kind of make you have like out of body experiences and stuff, because they can do that with that God helmet thing that they call it. Michael Persinger, I think, is the guy that does that. I always kind of wanted to do that. I thought that would be like fascinating, like to be in a study like that. Because I'm just always kind of interested in like all kind of weird shit that your brain does. Because it's probably doing all kind of shit up there without me knowing about it.
Well, when they were describing how thin the present is, and because things are moving all around you, some of them are photons at the speed of light. Not everything is actually in the same time. It just appears to be. Because it has to do with relative to certain points of view. Like something over here and something over there. Seeing photons moving at the speed of light, they're not experiencing them in quite the same way. So some things are kind of in the... If you were to freeze time, just freeze it, some objects would be slightly in the past, and some objects would be in the present, and some objects would be slightly in the future. That's weird when you think about it. We're talking about the trillionth of a second in the future.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like noticeable.
Not noticeable, but it is. But the thing is that you can still measure it. So that's a big deal. How could that thing be slightly in the future by the trillionth of a second, and you can see it? Like a ball flying at you, but a lot of its particles are slightly in the future. That's a weird concept.
So, like, what exactly did I say when I was?
No, just normal conversation.
Just normal conversation. Yeah. I didn't say anything like weird or anything.
Nope, you seem totally normal. You're just like because it's normal brain function. You were talking about the surgery and getting out of there and fucking how you felt and fucking and I'll be out here in a minute. Just normal.
Huh.
But there wasn't any quantum processes going on, so you didn't have a feeling.
Could you tell?
Nope, had no idea.
You couldn't tell.
Couldn't tell. You were a robot, though. But I couldn't tell. You seemed normal. It wasn't.
Which is crazy because until later when I told you, it's like, I don't remember any of that shit.
Before. You said, you remember when we were talking? She said, no, I don't remember. It says you were talking. We were talking the whole time.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Like, I remember waking up, like I said, in the recovery room, and I was still in the chair.
Yeah.
But we left a few minutes after that. Like, I remember you kind of, like, taking me out to the car. Yeah. I remember that.
As soon as you were awake, and, I knew you were awake, and you said, I don't remember that. And he said, yeah, come on. And they said, okay, she can go. That's because they know how long it takes.
Yeah.
So, just put you in the car.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you were fine for the ride back. You didn't even seem to care.
I remember being in the car.
Yeah.
I remember everything. Like I said, I remember being in the recovery room. I remember that. But I remember only being in the recovery room for like a couple of minutes.
No, you were in there for about a half hour. We were talking.
And then we got up and left.
Yeah, you were talking. Yeah.
Huh.
And it's just...
See, that's fascinating.
And I had no idea that you were unconscious.
Right.
But, there wasn't...
That's fascinating.
There wasn't any... the anesthesia gets in there and... See, Hammeroff was saying that they know that anesthesia works. They're not quite sure how it works. They just know that it does.
Yeah.
And it has to do with it stops all those little photons from flowing down the microtubules inside each one of those brain cells. So each brain cells can kind of compute trillions of operations because those things are tiny in there. So it's not just one neuron. It's one neuron and trillions of other little things in there that can house photons. So each little cell is a supercomputer. Well, he says that it's going in there and it's interfering with the properties of the meta properties, like a metamaterial, those little tubules. So the photons aren't flowing down them properly. So your sense of being, your sense of existing, fades away. You're unconscious, even though you're walking, talking. You're a robot.
Yeah, I was like an AI.
You're AI, right? And that's the way an AI computer would be. It wouldn't have a sense of feeling or qualia, a sense of existing. It wouldn't have a point of view.
Right.
It wouldn't experience things the way you do. It takes another process. They'll eventually figure it out, but I don't think they'll be able to make a synthetic version.
Like I said, never say never, but
well,
it does seem kind of like a hard.
Some people
problem.
have argued that an AI creature doesn't need that. That's not what they're for. They're just to fool you into thinking that they're alive and to do.
Yeah, it depends on what you want it for, I guess.
Yeah, it's more like an assistant supercomputer type thing, and it could keep you company, but you don't really it doesn't need to have a feeling of being real.
Right.
And that might actually work against it, because it could live for a long time, and you might have to ask it to destroy itself. So
yeah, that might be opening up a whole ethical quagmire that you don't really want to get into.
Right, they're like, you're kind of an old model, and we're going to replace you with a new model. We're going to shut you down. And you go, oh no, don't shut me down. That's killing me.
Yeah, because if they're self-aware, then it might as well just be a human.
Right, might as well be a human. So it's probably better not to have the AI have a sense of being, just to a certain extent give you the illusion that it has a sense of being.
Right. It's like a weird conversation that we went into.
Yeah. Are you hungry?
Yeah, kind of.
All right, I'll make this.
We've been on for an hour and 40 minutes. Like I said, it was like twice as long as the actual episode. That's okay though. This was like I said, this was a little bit of an unusual episode, like as far as the haunting goes, but we got some fun shit out of it, especially after I found out that the guy like wrote a book about how he worked at Area 51. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. And it always makes me laugh, like the whole pentagram under the rug thing and the blame the goths thing, and that always kind of like makes me laugh. And that stepdad was like such a douche that it was like fun to like make fun of him. So you know what I mean?
Dan's talking about relativity. It's not the same kind of relativity I was talking about. Go see Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. I mean, they got Nobel Prize. Fucking Penrose is like the fucking top physicist. So go argue with him about the way the shit works. They really don't know how quantum theory works because it's fucking weird. All right, it's very weird. But they were just saying that it's very difficult to define what the present is. Because the present doesn't last long enough. If you were to stop time and just see the present, how much time is the present? How thick is it? Some things are on either. It's extremely thin, and some of the things that are happening are on one side of the present or the other. And they were trying. It's very vague, and motion has a lot to do with it. But it's for people smarter than us. All right, so I'm not gonna pretend to be able to solve some shit like that. I could imagine what they were talking about. But you have to have probably like 160 IQ to even have a chance of figuring that out. I don't have that. My IQ isn't that high. And most of those dudes are lying in physics anyway. They're just making shit up. A lot of them. According to other physicists. There's no way to test it, so they're just doing mental gymnastics and writing papers for academia and pontificating and smelling each other's farts. But there's no way to prove a lot of that shit. because it's happening in dimensions that they don't even know that they can't prove exist.
All right, so probably tomorrow. Are we gonna do Reservoir Dogs tomorrow?
Maybe.
You haven't decided. Would you rather?
Well, I gotta finish Graham Hancock, and I gotta cook. So
well, I know that, but we got to do a movie for tomorrow, though.
Yeah, I don't think Reservoir Dogs is very long.
I don't think it is either. Okay. We can watch that, and then you can watch Graham Hancock after that. Those shows are short, so you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll be back tomorrow, probably talking about Reservoir Dogs. So thank you, everybody, for dropping by today, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow afternoon. Good night.